Metro Talk. I'm Kent Shuffle. Thanks for being with us. Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph, is here. Welcome, Jim.
Hi, Kent.
And Pat Gowan, one of the editors with the Post-Dispatch, is alongside as well. Welcome, Pat.
I can't.
Pat, the Madison County tax sales are back in the news. We're looking at another tax sale now, this one at a cost of possibly up to $300,000. That tax sale to take place to correct some of the problems that occurred in the previous sale. Is it a problem for the taxpayers that we may spend up to $300,000 on another tax sale?
Well, they say the devil's in the details, and this was a big devil in a tiny detail, because the only real problem with the tax sale that was already held back in February was that depending upon who you listen to, either Kurt Prenzler, the county treasurer, or Tom Gibbons, the state's attorney in Madison County, failed to get a judge's signature on the order calling for the tax sale. It's an absolutely uncontroversial thing that any judge would have signed if asked. It was just pro forma stuff, but by failing to do it, it nullified the whole darn tax sale, at which people bid essentially to pay for the delinquent taxes on property, whose owners then repay the bidders at interest or eventually lose that property. There are estimates of up to $300,000 in cost, and I think some of this has to do with lost interest on the part of the buyers who bought it in good faith, and now they find out the tax sale is not legal in the first place. There's talk of holding this thing back, not even having another tax sale until February 2013, when the next one would ordinarily have occurred. But there's a lot of money on the table that somebody's going to be out. They're going to be out interest, either county taxing bodies or the county government or the people who bought the property at the tax sale. Somebody's going to be out money. The county board's due to vote, I think, between the time we tape this and the time it airs, on a proposal that would have, I think, abated the interest from the people whose property was in arrears, because it couldn't legally be collected. But then that raises the question of who makes good on the interest that should have been collected by the people who bought the tax stuff. And in the long run, it's a mess. And the shorthand of it is that somebody's going to get stuck with maybe $100,000 to $300,000 of the bill, and it looks likely to be the taxpayers.
Jim, should taxpayers be upset that we may have to spend up to another $300,000 for a new tax sale?
Yes, they should. That doesn't cancel out the necessity, however. There's some real concerns that because the judge was not asked to sign off, that somebody could come back and say, these are not legal tax sales, therefore I can't be held accountable for them. It appears that the cost, as Pat pointed out, lost interest and so on and so forth, may, again, depending on if you believe Treasurer Kurt Prenzler, Republican, $100,000, or the Democrats on the county board as much as $300,000. So that's pretty wide range of cost there. But it does appear that the loss is going to come out of the general fund. It won't be paid out of the treasurer's office, and therefore we, the taxpayers, will get charged for it. It appears that next year, when the sale of 2011 delinquent taxes appears in February, that they will resell 10, correct? Or is it 11 and 12? Whichever.
It would be 11
11 and 12. That when they hold the tax sale next February for 12, they will resell the tax delinquencies that are now being set aside due to a lack of paperwork. The board and Kurt Prenzler's office had kind of agreed to take the politics out of this and no more mudslinging, saying it was the Republicans' fault, or Democrat Madison County State's Attorney Tom Gibbons, whose fault it was. Of course, that didn't happen when the debate came about, where you have Republican board members saying, well, the state's attorney should have taken care of this. It was an oversight. You had the Democratic board members saying that this was a screw up on Kurt Prenzler's part, the Republican treasurer, who has a huge target on his forehead because he has an R after his name in Madison County politics. but it can't come out of the proceeds of the sales because the sales are being set aside. The buyers who bought in good faith last February are being asked to not protest the fact that their sales are being set aside. That could get interesting before this is all over, because the buyers bought these in good faith, and remember, these are kind of a reverse auction thing. You buy down basically the interest rate. And I think, just knowing the way things work in Madison County, that some of these people that bought these delinquent taxes are going to say, hey, wait a minute, we didn't do anything wrong. You guys screwed this up. We should be made whole. And to ask them to set aside any right to appeal and getting them to agree, I think, quite frankly, will be two different things. The sale occurred, I guess, in February. We are now in August, so you've got roughly 6 months there that they're being asked to set aside. Or does the state, out of the general fund, as part of this 100 to 300, have to pay out 6 months worth of interest? I think all that's to be determined. What it was, regardless of which side didn't get it done, is a screw up, and it's going to cost all the Madison County residents, up to $300,000 out of the general fund, it appears.
We need to take a break. We'll have more Metro Talk in a moment.
Hi, I'm Audrey Lucchese, and I'm from Alton, Illinois. I love music, and that's why I came to Lewis & Clark. It's been an amazing experience here at Lewis & Clark, working with students that are so talented, coming from all over the area, and they work so hard to follow their dreams. The music faculty at Lewis & Clark they're fantastic, and they're there every step of the way to push you to follow your dreams. One of the unique opportunities that I have had at Lewis & Clark is being able to record my own music with a fellow student here. Being able to record our music has opened doors for us in the music industry. My long-term goal is to finish here at Lewis & Clark and then to transfer to a four-year school and finish my degree in music performance. I would recommend Lewis & Clark to another student because it is definitely a great place to get started, and it can open so many doors for you.
Big dreams and good grades aren't enough to get into college. There are actual steps you need to take. Finding someone who can help is the first and most important. For the next steps, go to knowhowtogo.org.
Watching Metro Talk, I'm Kent Scheffel. Pat Gowan and Jim Schrader are here. Jim, Amy Scholler, the Republican candidate for Madison County State's Attorney, says she's being kept out of Labor Day parades in Alton and Granite City. Should they be able to keep her out if they want to, the organizers of the parade?
Well, the organizers of the parade are primarily Democrats. They are backed by the unions. There's no tax money involved in staging these parades. As I understand it, even the organizers of the parade pay for the road closures and the police, extra police coverage and so on and so forth. So I suppose from their point of view, it's their parade, and they know who they can invite and they can't invite. Amy Scholler is saying, wait, I've always been a supporter of labor, and yes, I happen to be running for office, and I happen to have an R after my name. I should be able to participate. But the Democrats, primarily, who control the parade, are saying, No, you can't. It's our parade. Therefore, we know who to invite and not to invite, or we can choose who to invite or not to invite. We may not, include certain bands or certain floats or certain organizations. We might, we wouldn't allow a right to work organization to have a float in the parade. Therefore, they're going to exclude her. I know how she feels. But I think in this particular case, she really doesn't have a leg to stand on. And one could say, well, then give your own parade and not invite the Democratic candidate for the same office.
Pat, should the Republican candidate for state's attorney in Madison County be blocked from taking part in the Labor Day parades in Alton and Granite City?
Well, she should be. Depends on the organizers of the parade, of course. But if she wants to have the Amy Scholler Labor Day parade and ask for a permit from the cities of Granite City and Alton and is denied, then I think she's got a complaint coming. But this is effectively a political rally. This is the organizers doing what they want. It might be easier to grasp if you just considered the Democratic Party deciding that it would have a rally in renting a public building, the Public Civic Center of Xville, and for a Democratic rally, and a Republican saying, oh, yeah, man, I want a chance to speak at that rally. It's a public facility. But they've effectively rented the public facility, and that's what happens with the parade. You've gotten permission to use it as long as everybody's given permission on an equal footing. She can have a parade and put together floats and whatever she wants and have the same sort of access. But I don't think the law is on her side. I don't think common sense is on her side.
Jim, Governor Quinn says reporters should not be allowed into the prisons in the state. He said it creates a security risk if reporters want to take tours of the prisons. Is he correct? Should we be keeping reporters out of the prisons?
Well, my esteemed colleague over here has toured lots of prisons in his career and written about them extensively. I think maybe part of this is quite possibly damage control. I mean, Quinn is at odds with the workers at these facilities right now, having stated almost unequivocally that he's going to close 2 of those offices, or 2 of those institutions. I think he may be concerned what some of those union members and what some of those workers at the unions, the union members, what they would say to a reporter, that they might have a tendency to show an even more worse or a more difficult operation than it may really be. I think Quinn is looking at this as kind of a damage control situation, blaming it on security. Well, if security is a problem and we've admitted that we don't have enough workers at these facilities, well, maybe the two go hand in hand. I think that this is a way for him to kind of say, well, we are concerned about Pat Gowan's safety if we allow him to tour Menard because we can't guarantee that he will be okay. I think it's more a case of they don't want Pat Gowan to see and talk to the rank and file people that work and operate these prisons every day.
If you had a reporter who said, I want to tour one of the prisons, and the reporter said, I understand the risks, I understand that the potential exists for me to get attacked, would you let them go?
I would have to weigh that decision very carefully because none of us intentionally would put a reporter in harm's way. So if for example, a reporter said, they wanted to go in during a lockdown because there had been a riot at a prison, I don't think I would allow that because even though it sounds like a noble thing to do, it might not be best for the ultimate safety of the reporter and the ultimate liability of the newspaper, because even though that reporter says, I know the risk and I'm willing to go in there, the liability still falls back to the employer.
Pat, you've been to multiple prisons around the state. Do you think it's a problem when you toured those prisons?
Well, first let me say that in my experience, every governor of Illinois has wanted to put as many reporters as possible into the prison. The issue is letting us back out.
Who goes first, the reporter or the governor?
I'm sure Governor Quinn would be happy for us all to go there if he could just lock the door behind us when we do. I really just have 3 questions for Governor Quinn about this, and the questions are, what are you trying to hide? What are you trying to hide? And what are you trying to hide? Because I can't think of any other reason for this. Those of us who've gone into prisons as reporters have knowingly taken a risk, as we take a risk in a lot of the places we go. If there's an explosion at the refinery, and we go, there's a risk in doing that too. Reporters put themselves in some measure of harm for this story as a matter of course. That's just the way it is. I can remember walking the yard at Menard with Jim Greer when he was warden, and Bill Brinson, photographer for the Globe Democrat where I worked, who's now with SIUE, and we were outnumbered probably 200 to 3, 300 to 3. The warden said, try to stay inside of the guard towers. He said, because they've got rifles and they can protect you with fire, but if you're in a blind spot, you're really on your own out here. And nobody gave us any trouble, and they knew who we were. And they don't want to cause that kind of problem. It was interesting that not on that trip, but the first trip I ever took to Menard, inmates had a riot and took hostages a week to the day after I was there. I remember having mixed emotions about that, thinking it would be a better story if you were in the middle of it and of course knew you were going to get out okay. It's disruptive when any outsider comes into prison. A new prisoner is somewhat disruptive. A new guard is somewhat disruptive. It's a dynamic environment, but that we're there, I don't think outweighs, the disruption does not outweigh the importance of the public getting eyes inside an institution in controversy, so that somebody independent can look around and say, here's what I see there. And I think that has great value, and I think it's frightening to me. If the governor doesn't want that to happen, I think everybody in the public ought to wonder why, and he really ought to change his position about this, because I think he's dead wrong.
Now, when you talk about walking the yard, where did you feel safer, in the maximum security prisons or in the minimum or medium security facilities?
Menard is a maximum security prison, so you were in there among killers and really bad people. I've also been to the federal Supermax when it was at Marion. It's since moved. I've been in the state Supermax at Tams. Supermax at Tams is a cupcake. Everybody's locked in individual cells. Nobody moves until they put their hands through the grate and had their arms and their legs shackled, and there are 2 guards on them. You pretty much can't get hurt in Tams unless you make a mistake as a security officer. And as a visitor, it's really kind of a cupcake. It's a very depressing place, all these people locked up and claiming mental illness, and maybe being driven crazy by the isolation. That's something for the experts to say. But at the least, it's a very safe feeling environment with Tams, simply because of the isolation. It also is costing at least 2 and in some cases 3 times more per inmate to hold people there than at the other prisons. Some states, like Missouri, don't even have a super maximum prison, and they seem to get by okay. I mean, these are intrinsically depressing places filled with a lot of people, certainly in despair, and a lot of mean people, and I think the public ought to have a chance periodically to get a look inside there through somebody's eyes.
We need to take a break. We have more after this.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to be talking with Michelle Singley about the dental hygiene program.
Dental hygiene students learn a variety of treatment skills when they're enrolled in the program at Lewis and Clark. For example, students learn to take a thorough medical history, to perform a head and neck assessment, including an oral cancer screening, and to assess the gum tissue, teeth, and bone of their patients. The students also take dental x-rays, perform dental cleanings, place dental sealants to prevent cavities, and treat the patient's teeth with fluoride or fluoride varnish. Dental hygiene students also teach others to take good care of their teeth with oral hygiene aids such as brush and floss. Our Gina the giraffe puppet is one of the students' favorites. We take her out to the schools to teach the kids good oral habits. For more information about the dental hygiene program, call us at 468-4413, and you can meet Gina.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
I'm starving. What's for breakfast?
Guten Tag!
Johannes, Franz!
I bring you arts-enriched Raisinblams, fortified with increased test scores and creative problem-solving skills.
It's good!
And good for you. Bobby? Susie? Don't worry, that's just the power of the arts!
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit AmericansForTheArts.org.
You're watching Metro Talk. I'm Kent Sheffield. Pat Gowan's here, along with Jim Schrader. Pat, last week we talked about former Governor George Ryan's request to get out of prison. The word since that point is that he's going to be released a few months early and be allowed to go to a halfway house. Is that acceptable? Is that a good idea?
Oh, sure. He's 78 years old. He's not a danger to the public unless you elect him to something.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
He's not going to hurt anybody. You know, my God. I've always felt sort of sad. This is a guy who's serving, as I recall calculating, about double the sentence of his predecessor in prison, Dan Walker, who didn't even go to prison for anything he did as governor, who served about twice as long as his predecessor as governor who went to prison, Otto Kerner. And by the way, Blagojevich is serving about twice the term of Ryan, so I figure, you know, every time they try twice as much. So look out, the next guy after Blagojevich is going for a long time. A 78-year-old man, his wife has passed away while he was in prison. He did get to go say goodbye to her. But this man has paid a tremendous price for the crimes that he committed. And I was as outraged as anyone at the crimes that were committed, but I've always felt sort of sorry for the guy. So at 78 years old, he's going to go to a Salvation Army halfway house in Chicago, ostensibly. He's going to work at some kind of job by day and sleep there at night till he's finally released. I think his pension's been stripped away largely. He's kind of a sad old man with a whole lot of resources, and not without a whole lot of resources and a lot of memories. And so I feel some sympathy, and I'm just as happy that he'll get out in January instead of his release date, which I think was the 4th of July. They got a big fireworks display for the ex-governor getting out, I guess, but not now. It'll be in January, and he'll probably kind of fade quietly into the woodwork from there. I'm kind of wondering what kind of job do you get at a halfway house for a former governor? What would he be doing?
At 78 years old?
At 78
Yes.
years old. I guess we'll find out.
Jim, is it okay that he gets released early to go to a halfway house?
I like Pat. I don't have a problem with it. It's not like he's going home and sleeping in his own bed every night. It's a different type of imprisonment, but it's still a type of imprisonment. And depending on what job they allow him to do, those may be long days that a formerly very powerful man with lots of connections and lots of power could be, you know, a picking up trash along the highway or serving soup in the kitchen or something like that. I don't feel any sadness that he was in prison. I don't feel any sadness that the jury found him guilty and said these crimes were crimes against, you know, taxpayers, and you took an oath and you broke it. So the fact that he's had to serve a prison term doesn't bother me. The fact that he gets out a few months early and can perform some necessary service during the day that in theory won't be taking a job away from somebody that's in a paying position. It'd be, I'm sure, doing something less glamorous than that. And the fact that he has to sleep in a Salvation Army halfway house every night, he's still in prison. It's not going to be the lap of luxury for him. He's 78 years old. I don't know exactly what he can do. I'm sure there are things that to many people would seem very menial, but I think that's probably continuing to teach him a lesson that some of the things that he may have done impacted people that have to do jobs like this all the time. And so he gets out in January, good for him. He can't have a huge life expectancy at 78, almost 79 when he gets out of prison. And he has paid his debt.
Pat, we saw several $1 million being spent in Missouri in the primary election race for the U.S. Senate seat there. Are we going to see even more money spent? Are we going to see even a nastier race now that we're ready for the general election?
Yes, a lot of money. It's going to be a nasty race, and one of the reasons is this has a lot to do with a lot more than just who's going to be the United States Senator for the state of Missouri. This has to do with who's going to control the United States Senate. Every seat's going to be a fight. And I think you're going to see this repeated in various places. I think you're going to see it repeated in Illinois. The Plummer Enyart race for Congress is going to be a loud, tough fight, I think, because that's another one that's really a goes either way fight, having direct bearing on which party may control the House of Representatives after January.
I think it's going to be more targeted, but I think the amount of money being spent is going to be obscene. That it takes that amount of money to run for a Senate seat. The way it was before, you had the three Republican candidates firing shots at each other and the seated Senator Claire McCaskill. Now it's one-on-one. And Senator McCaskill was firing shots at the three candidates, though most targetedly at the ultimate winner in that three-way race, Todd Aiken. And I think it's going to be an interesting fight, but I think it's going to be very, very expensive. And I think we're all going to be real tired of, since we are all, in the St. Louis metropolitan market for television, we're going to get real tired of seeing these senatorial ads pointing and counterpointing at each other. But I think it will probably go down on record as one of the most expensive races.
Pat, you mentioned the congressional race here in Southern Illinois. Jason Plummer's already had Speaker of the House John Boehner in to campaign for him. Is that going to be the first of many national figures to come to Metro East?
Well, they're spread kind of thin, but I think you're going to see more of this sort of thing. And as the polling goes on, the money will follow the likelihood of which way the race goes. So if Plummer pulls out far enough ahead in the polls, for example, then maybe the Democrats won't put as much energy in or the other way around. But I think right now it looks like that could be a very close race, as opposed to the race for John Shimkus in the next district, where I think Shimkus is absolutely safe, and you're not going to hear very much about that one.
Well, I think Boehner said he was going to be stumping around the country for like 38 candidates, either Republican incumbents or Republicans that they would like to see elected. And as Pat pointed out, they're trying to get control of the Senate, so a few more R's than D's could have a huge effect. Enyart, on paper, it would seem like the heir apparent because he was going to fill Jerry Costello's seat, a long-serving Democrat, 23 years. And I think on paper you would just assume that a Democrat is going to take that. I don't know that that's going to happen. Plummer's going to put on a fight.
That's going to do it for this round of Metro Talk. Thanks for being with us. Pat Gowan, one of the editors of the Post-Dispatch, has been here, along with Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph. I'm Kent Scheffel. We'll see you next time.